Half a day and hello everybody. Human resources, I was going to say is back, but they never went anywhere. In fact, they were actually doing much more work during the pandemic, and it has been a year since the last SHRM conference. That's, of course, the Society for Human Resources Management. Two of the leaders of that very worthwhile and very necessary organization, Miss Yolanda Padrones and attorney Vince Camacho, are with me right now in the KUM News Zoom room. So, Vince and Yoli, thank you so much for joining me, and I am super excited to talk about this year's SHRM conference.
Thanks,
Yes, thank you,
Jason.
Jason.
Okay, so I know last year, Yoli, let's start with you if I may. Last year we had a phenomenal slate of speakers. Johnny, one of the bigwigs in SHRM National, came out and gave this amazingly stirring presentation about the role of HR, how human resources has evolved, and the litany of additional responsibilities people in that profession took on. And then now we've got this the post-typhoon stuff that you all in HR have to deal with and everything like that. So certainly that's going to factor into this year's presentations, I would assume.
Yes, we are actually really excited. We have three phenomenal speakers. They're off-island talent, so we're always really excited to bring in talent from the mainland to grace our local community. We have speakers who will be talking about employment law. We have a very inspirational speaker as our closing keynote speaker. And we also have not a stranger to the island, Dr. Milton Perkins, who covers DE&I. He'll also be covering leadership and other areas of HR. So we're really excited to have these three amazing speakers. Unfortunately, Johnny's not going to be returning, but he'll be here next year. So just a plug for next year, we expect him to come back to Guam for our SHRM conference in 2024.
And of course, Johnny Vince does have a connection to Guam because his wife is from here, and he knows the lay of the land. He also knows the HR profession right here, how hard those people working in HR are going at this, and the passion that they project when they do their job, which have increased 100-fold since probably like 4 years ago.
Oh, most definitely. Johnny's connection to Guam is through his blood, right? Like his partner, but more importantly, his daughter. His daughter, her mom is a daughter of Guam, so he's very, very close to us in this community and supports us here at SHRM Guam and even in the CNMI. And we're looking forward to seeing him in 2024. But in 2023, it's hard to compete against Johnny. But this year, I think the slate of people that we have coming to the conference and the breakout sessions that we're going to have is going to sort of combine all of the experiences the HR community has been through in the last 3 years, through COVID, through the storm. A good example.
And then we had the Great Resignation in the middle of that, and then we have what is it called, like the Great Return, and then we had all of you folks in HR had to come up with all of these plans to deal with work remotely, remote teaching, work from home, and everything, and then we get a storm.
It's been a dynamic last few years, so to speak, from, like you said, lack of labor pool to influx, and then now people moving. I mean, we know on Guam, a lot of our employers have experienced many different things. And one of the key sections that we're going to have is, how do you deal with grief in the workplace? Whether it's someone in the workplace passing on through COVID, through one of their family members. And I think that's what's been missing over the last several years is, how do we train our HR managers and our managers and supervisors in the workplace to deal with grief? Because we all deal with grief differently in our personal lives, but how do we deal with that in the workplace? We've seen it over the last 3 years that mental health issues have taken the spotlight. And that's just one of the areas in the mental health world in how to deal with grief and how to help our employees deal with it. As you go to work, you find out that your coworker passed away. That's not something you just say, okay, we'll go to the rosary and the funeral and that's it, right? These people have worked with you for years. Your other employees have to grieve. And so we have a really good speaker, Darlene Garcia, who will help us navigate through that. We also have the U.S. Department of Labor, Patrick Candeletta, the division chief for Guam, who will come in and talk to us about U.S. labor laws. Another issue that's also come up is, as a lawyer, I get clients call me saying, I can't find my employee. I don't know what happened to my employee, or my employee's in the newspaper. They got arrested over the weekend. What do I do? So we're going to have a discussion with the magistrate judge on how what information employers can expect when they do get into that type of situation.
And not to make light in this of that situation and in the slightest, counselor, but I mean that too is a form of grief, because that is that is a pressure that affects a company's reputation, that may affect their perception to clients, to customers, and everything. And that is something that certainly HR is going to have to deal with and manage.
Oh, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also excited to bring to Guam from Norway or Sweden, Dr. Erica Anderson, who is homegrown in Guam. She is going to be talking about human trafficking and how human trafficking exists on Guam, and to sort of train our HR individuals how to spot human trafficking and how to report it and how to.
I have interviewed Erica before, and she is tremendous.
Yes, so she will be joining us for that. But I think the highlight, and I have to pat ourselves on the back here, because we are actually bringing out an EEOC commissioner, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Commissioner Keith Sonderling will be joining us to talk about what's going on in the EEOC, how HR is transforming with regard to accommodations, with regard to AI. He is an expert on AI, so he's been traveling the United States. He actually just came from Singapore to talk about AI and how it affects labor and employment laws. So we have the full gamut. So we're really excited about this, and we hope people will join us on August 18th.
Absolutely. And we would be remiss if we neglected to mention the fact that Yoli and Vince, apparently you guys didn't get the memo that I too would like one of those wonderful virtual backgrounds that you have, but HR United is the theme of our conference this year. It is co-sponsored not only by SHRM Guam, the Guam chapter, but also our friends at United Airlines. So thank you, United, for making this happen. And kind of like HR United, Yoli, is very, very fitting, because I remember one of the key themes that was really driven home last year was that, how can companies adapt to this new method of working and this new mindset and, make all these new accommodations, like Vince said, without losing their culture and, with maintaining, the fundamentals and the principles that got those companies there.
So, one of the things that SHRM has tried to do in our programming is focusing on business acumen for our HR professionals. When we talk about being united as an HR, as a profession, we know how important it is to lean on each other during times of pandemic, and now with the typhoon, and even just navigating through employment law. So one of the other segments that we're excited to bring to the table is a segment asking CEOs specifically, what do they want their HR professionals to know, so that we can arm them with the kind of programming, the kind of training, the kind of resources that they're going to need to be successful. So we're inviting 5 local CEOs to talk to us about what they've done. These are thought-provoking. They've actually empowered their HR department to be able to give them the resources, to support them in whatever way they need to be able to manage through this rapidly changing business environment.
I'm dying to know, Yoli, who those 5 CEOs are. Can you give us a hint?
Sure. So we're starting with Wachin Cook from the Bank of Guam.
Sure.
We have Kathy Killo from Payless. We also have Rod Boss from Docomo Pacific. We're also including Mr. Alex Yap from AK. And he represents AK Guam, Saipan, and Morocco Equipment. We also have Mr. Ben Ferguson from TIC. So we tried to do different industries, different sizes, so we can get their unique perspective and actually pick their brains on what they did during all of these challenges. We want to talk about strategy. We want to talk about compensation and benefit strategies on how they dealt with, this labor shortage, and what did they do to inspire people to stay or to attract them into their workforce, knowing how challenging it is.
That is a great lineup. Congratulations.
Yeah. We're really excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Vince, I would probably dare say that I know a lot of like the HR people that I've been privileged to talk to, like especially like in the last last 3 months since Typhoon Mawar came and left, was that they said a lot of people were like, oh God, we've got all this work now, and like GHRA is possibly saying that there may be at least a temporary work stoppage because the hospitality industry was expected to take a hit. But a lot of people in HR were saying what we learned during the pandemic years was that now we have a template or a framework that we can build upon. And this allows us to actually get through these times much more efficiently than possibly we did like 4 years ago when this was all completely new. And to be honest, a lot of people were just trying to make stuff up and what would be most appropriate for their business. But now people feel that they have a really firm grasp on how to handle these kind of crises. Crises? Yeah, crises.
Crisis.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think the learning curve was extremely steep in 2021. And I think our firm alone was so busy redrafting policies and procedures to address OSHA, to address accommodations, whether it was religious or whether it was medical with regard to vaccinations, whether it was remote work, how do you deal with policies on how to monitor remote workers. So the HR profession in the last probably 3 years has transformed tremendously, and they were sort of pushed into the corner and said, you have to do this, right? And so it was extremely busy, not only trying to sort of navigate the labor pool and the labor force issues, but you also had to address every other aspect of human resources, is recruitment, retention, compensation, benefits, because people were stealing employees from each other. We all know that. I mean, we've seen a big exodus of individuals leaving Guam because the opportunities, not only from employers on Guam, but from employers off the island. We saw ads in the newspapers for several businesses in the United States paying bonuses to come over, signing bonuses, and they would pay for moving expenses and travel expenses. How does someone on Guam compete with that? We have a very different labor market here, and yet we're still now competing with California, with New Mexico, with Arizona, Washington. So having to deal with that, and that's why I think Yoli's proposal for the CEOs was a very good idea, because they had to deal with that.
So Yoli, maybe as Guam's organizations have gotten larger, the world's gotten smaller at the same time. Would you agree?
Absolutely. We are no longer just competing locally, we're competing nationally. And, businesses in the States are willing to pay for certain things that in the past was not even available to us. And so I think too, we're looking at, the increase. There's a great attraction to the differences in how one compensates the same profession here versus in California or any of the states that Vince mentioned. So it has been really, really challenging. And so one of the things that we've had to focus on is retention, not just attracting, because we're all stealing from each other, like Vince said, but it's retaining our employees. How do we maintain our culture, but even look at compensation and benefit packages? We've had to revisit things because we're forced to. And it's been a really good exercise, I will say that. And, the focus has been on what do employees need to be as, they can work as well as they can, given all of these conditions. And so HR has had to, really work with our managers and our supervisors to get a better understanding of what those needs are and address them.
And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, guys, but I mean, it's so expensive to do onboarding and recruitment and bring on new people and phase out, people for whatever reason, they leave for more money, they leave for stock options, whatever like that. It is such a huge expense to bring on new people. And, like Vince, you were talking about the cultural aspect of companies and organizations. I mean, there's that too. And then you just got to get used to them and indoctrinate them into your organization's culture.
Yeah, I think I just had a meeting with a bunch of nurses who are from Guam, born and raised on Guam, homegrown on Guam. So we all know, we've heard of traveling nurses who are coming to Guam to help out our healthcare industry, while our local people are now wanting to become traveling nurses to go off island and experience other jurisdictions and these are young nurses. And it's really, difficult for our healthcare system to try to retain these individuals when the pay, the benefits, and a lot of the other compensation, bonuses that traveling nurses get paid are, this may be not a good thing for Guam eventually, because now we're going to see our young, new nurses here wanting to experience other things, and you can't blame them, right? But the world, like you mentioned earlier, is becoming smaller.
Now, I don't know, Yoli, if it's on our agenda for the SHRM conference, which again, everybody, please make sure to register. We'll get to registration in just a second. I don't know. I mean, here at KUM, we've done some stories about people leaving for better opportunities. Would you classify, or, would the discussions at the SHRM conference address the fact that maybe we have had a brain drain of talent here, or are we approaching one?
I think, one of the things that I find has come up through this examination of why people leave organizations is also the leadership of an organization. More and more, I think employees have become emboldened in telling us what they want. And, you hear it all the time. People don't leave good businesses, whether they're competent, whether or not they're getting paid what they want, they leave bad managers. And so I think that part of what we hope to accomplish in the lineup that we have is also to focus on leadership, the leadership that's necessary in order for us to continue to compete, because leadership is an important factor in why people stay. And you mentioned it earlier, there is a price tag, and it's a very high one when we lose employees because of onboarding costs, because of the loss of institutional knowledge. So there's really a case for investing in your leadership. And so we invite all people, not just HR professionals. Anyone that leads a person is an HR, should consider themselves as an HR professional. And so what we hope to accomplish in, the content that we're going to have in this conference is to talk about a lot of different things that embody human resources. And, your people are your greatest asset. So what better place should you be at than our HR conference to talk about how to become better leaders, and to really just explore maybe things that you wouldn't have known otherwise. And I think, when we talk about becoming united, opening up your eyes to exploring different things, different strategies, the views of other people. You can't do that from your office. I think, coming to the conference and getting with other people who might have similar ideas or even different ones, and just being open to all of that. And so we invite all managers of people, all HR professionals, CEOs even, because this is going to be a really great conversation.
Oh, the networking potential and value is off the charts.
100%. And CEOs alone, if they are going to listen to other CEOs who have been at the forefront and who have invested in their HR team, they might be able to come away with a better understanding of how HR can actually contribute to the success of their organization. So this is a conference for everyone, and we hope that, we have registration open right now, and we invite everyone to go to our website and register for our conference.
Okay, so what is the website? And before we get to that, I want to say that one thing I really appreciated, Vince, about last year's conference was that, I mean, yeah, there were a lot of tough topics that were tackled. There were a lot of uncomfortable discussions that were addressed. I mean, it wasn't just all, the world is flowery rainbows and, and rose-colored champagne glasses and everything like that. There were a lot of horror stories shared, and it with the assumption that I'm sharing this knowledge and the roadblocks that I've gone through and overcome, so that our, we as a Guam business industry can grow and can evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just really take a look at our tagline, it's taking HR to new heights. But as Yoli, we've been elevating ourselves very quickly over the last 3 years. But now that we've been able to see all the work that we've done in the last 3 years, how do we now bring that to a higher level? And I think Yoli hit the nail on the head when she says this is not just HR professionals that should attend these things. A lot of people don't realize that managers and supervisors of every single organization, they're really considered management. So they have and the company has a stake in whatever decisions they make and how they supervise their human capital. And in doing so, in coming to this conference, we hope that you'll be able to elevate yourself so that you understand that you are not just a manager or supervisor for certain individuals. You really represent the company.
Absolutely.
And what you do can impute the company in any potential liability. And so when we start talking about that, we need to give our managers and supervisors the skills to be leaders. And so, we hope with Dr. Perkins' conversation, with the U.S. Department of Labor conversation in terms of what leadership takes, because it's not easy. Not everyone can be a leader, but you can help people become leaders to help manage our employees. You need to give them the law. What does the law say? You need to give them the skills on how to manage individuals. When they come to them, say, my mom just died. What do you do? Some people don't know what to do when their employees is experiencing grief. But there's a lot of empathy that we've seen over the last 3 years that is sort of a skill that managers and supervisors are having to employ.
That's a key word.
How do they employ that empathy? They need to understand humans, right, and how to lead them. So, we're very excited. Putting this conference together wasn't very easy, but I think we got a great lineup, and so we're very happy that we have great sponsors and we have a great lineup, and we just hope everyone will come and join us and learn. Because at the end of the day, the biggest asset on your balance sheet is really not on your balance sheet. You don't see human capital on your assets.
Great point.
Right?
Okay, so let's go back to you.
Go ahead.
Oh,
They're the ones
please.
that make the business run.
There
right?
you go. Okay.
Without them, you're not going to have any other thing in the business. So.
Okay, so Yoli, I can literally hear thousands of people on the other side of YouTube yelling at me already. Can we get to the registration? What's the website? Because I want to get my people. I want to get butts in seats, and I want to get information in brains. So, let's tackle that. How can people register?
Sure. So our SHRM Guam website is www.guam.shrm.org. And you will find an invitation to register for our conference. We're also on social media. So if you search for SHRM Guam, there are a host of invitations. We also send mass email to all of our members and anyone who's attended our conference. So don't ignore those. Click on them. You can register that way as well. So definitely online, guam.shrm.org, or visit our social media pages.
Very good. And I know everybody's thinking about these days about return on investment, and that purse strings are tight for everybody these days, especially after the typhoon. But trust me, everybody, I can say this with full confidence, having been at the last couple of conferences. This is going to be the best money you spend for your organization. You are going to 10x your investment. What you will be able to extract and take away from this is going to benefit your company long after the doors close in the conference room.
Yeah, one thing that we've started this year, employers can actually, or companies can actually buy tables. So there's a table of 8, which there are some savings there. So a table of 8 will cost $1,600, and the table will actually be reserved for that company. So you don't have to spread out. So there'll be actually a reserved table if you bought the table.
Very nice.
Yeah, one of the things we've experienced in the past is where groups, they'll send someone in at 6:30 to reserve a table. Well, if your group buys tables, then they will have a reserved table. Just so you know, we do have companies or entities, including GovGuam agencies, that have bought multiple tables already.
Oh, good. So we are going to also incorporate the local government. Hopefully some federal agencies and partners from all sectors will be joining us as well.
Most definitely. In the past, we've had federal contractors, and that's why we sort of have a broad scope with regard to the impact of federal laws, local laws, and just in general leadership and HR issues, because they span across. HR is sort of becoming very multidimensional, and so it doesn't matter what industry you are, we all have the same issues. And so, by pulling all these different aspects of HR together in different times, we just sort of help take HR to new heights, and that's our objective.
Yeah, most excellent. And guys, again, guys, thank you for allowing me and giving me the privilege because, you know, my dad was in HR. My sister has been in HR for many, many years. One of my best friends is in HR at Amazon and everything like that. So even though I've never gotten into the discipline, I joined marketing. I joined the dark side. But I mean, it's always been something I've been exposed to. It's also something I've had a lot of reverence and respect for. And just being able to MC this conference for you guys, once again, is a true honor for me because I know how much value there really is for anybody who attends. So thank you.
And we thank you too, Jason, for your time.
All right. But by the way, if we can all get copies of that wonderful island shirt you're wearing, Vince, as in the swag bag and everything like that, yeah, it pays for itself.
I have to talk to Yoli about the budget on that one.
Well, we'll have our people talk to your people.
Yeah, that's fine.
Who does HR talk about when you want to talk about like the fashion for the employees? I don't know. Maybe that'll be brought up.
So Jason, just another thing, you know, we
Mhm.
talk about the return on investment. You are getting 3 off-island speakers. I mean, all of us know the cost of travel these days. It is not cheap. You're looking upwards of $2,000. We have an amazing inspirational speaker that we haven't even talked much about. His name is John Register.
Yes.
He's a Paralympic silver medalist. He speaks about how he's taken this adversity and how he tries to allow or help people take all of that to be able to look at the potential. So we're really excited to have him. Him alone, I think, would be just the registration alone. But we have the EEOC commissioner. We also have Dr. Perkins, who talks about DE&I, and that's another huge topic on the HR agenda. So just the return on investment, you know, just the 3 headliners alone is far more value than what you're paying. But we have so much more in our lineup that I think many will find valuable. So I'm really excited about it. Vince has worked so hard to be able to bring an amazing lineup. And the team has supported him to be able to bring this to fruition. So we're so grateful for all of our sponsors to be able to make this happen as well. But we do think the return on investment is 10 times the amount that you pay.
All right. Well, Yoli Padrones and attorney Vince Camacho, thank you both once again for doing this. And Vince, congratulations on a wonderful conference. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. And we are not done
Thank you.
talking about this because make sure to check out KUN because we will be talking much more about the SHRM conference as we come up to the actual day. So we'll see you guys there.
Thank you.
Thank you.